Hey, fifth graders, have you heard of 2D shapes and 3D shapes? 2D shapes are two-dimensional flat figures like a square, a triangle, or a circle. It is flat. It usually just has the length and the width. But three-dimensional figures are solids. You look around your house, most things you see in your house are solids. They are three-dimensional figures. Remember we talked about cubes? Cubes are solid with 12 edges, 6 bases, 8 vertices. Bases are also called faces. These two words are sometimes interchangeably. We're going to talk more about that later. So this is a cube. Today we're going to talk about prisms and pyramids. Our lesson goal is to identify and classify prisms and pyramids. Well, we can probably hit that goal by just looking at pictures. These are prisms. These are pyramids. Did you tell the main difference? If you can tell the main difference, then you have already learned how to identify and you have learned at least to identify prisms and pyramids. But we're going to learn more so that you can classify prisms and classify pyramids. Another goal is to identify the solid figure that can be formed from a net. Here, this is a net. If you cut out the extra paper and you fold along the lines, you can fold this net into a pyramid. I think you might have done that in your classes. If you have ever folded a square, a pyramid out of shapes like this, then you know what a net is. But since we are using HBL, we are watching videos, and I can't print out papers for you. We're not going to do much about the net. Hopefully we can do that when we go back to school, and I can print nets for you, and you can do some hands-on activity. So today, let's just look at just the prisms. Now let's look at a prism, what a prism is. Here it says a prism is a solid figure with two parallel and congruent bases joined by rectangular faces. Here. In this prism, the two parallel and congruent bases are the triangle in the front and the triangle at the back. These two triangles are congruent, means they're the same, and they're parallel, means they will never meet each other. In this prism, there is a square here, a rectangle actually, a rectangle here. These two rectangles are congruent and parallel. In this prism, there's a pentagon. Oh, I can't draw a good pentagon. A pentagon is a two-dimensional shape with 5 sides. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And there's another pentagon at the bottom. These two pentagons are parallel and congruent. In this solid, it has a hexagon. Hexagon is a shape with 6 sides. And there's another hexagon. Oh, I drew a square. These two hexagons are parallel and congruent. So pentagon and hexagon, if you don't remember or if you didn't learn the names of 2D shapes. So first of all, we know that a prism has two bases. These two bases can be a triangle, a square, a pentagon, and a hexagon. And these two bases are parallel and congruent, and they are joined by rectangular faces. So in this figure, these two bases are joined by rectangular faces like this. Here's one, and there's one at the side too. So there's another rectangle. There's another rectangle. There's one at the back. There's one here. So it's joined by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 rectangles. And which is my next one here. In this figure, these two rectangle bases are joined by a rectangle here, another rectangle face here, another rectangle face at the bottom, and 1, 2, 3, 4 rectangular faces. Okay, in this figure, the two pentagon faces are joined by a rectangle here, one on the left side, one on the right side, and one at the back, one at the back. Can you see these rectangles? These are not shaped like a rectangle here, but it's because we're not facing it. If we have learned 14.2 lesson 2, we would know better how to draw solids on a flat paper, but we had to skip it because we can't do that very easily on home-based learning. So these two bases are joined by rectangular faces, and same for the two triangles. They are joined by a rectangular face here, and one here, and one at the bottom. Now let's learn how to classify the prisms. A prism is named according to the shape of its bases. So we've already looked at the bases of each prism here. This has a triangular base, rectangular base, and this one has a pentagonal base, and this one has a hexagonal base. So according to the shape of its bases, we name the prisms differently. With triangular bases, it is a triangular prism. With rectangular bases, it is a rectangular prism. With pentagonal bases, it is a pentagonal prism. And with the hexagonal bases, this is a hexagonal prism. Here, hexagon, this is how you spell it. And pentagon. So, according to the name of these bases, according to the name of these bases, each prism is called a different name. Now that we have counted the edges, the vertices, faces, and bases in a rectangular prism, now I'm going to show you your homework. In this form, here it says type of prism. This is a triangular prism. I have a picture here. And in this column, it says number of sides of each base. We know that a triangular prism has a triangular base in the front and another triangular base at the back. So the number of sides of each base would be 3 because triangle has 3 sides. Number of rectangular faces connecting the bases. Well, there's one rectangle here, and one at the bottom. the bottom one. So there are 3 rectangular bases connecting the rectangular faces connecting the bases. Number of vertices. There's 1 here. If I change the color of my pen, it might be easier. So there's 1 vertex here, 1 here, 1 here, 1 here, and there's 2 more here. There are 6 vertices, and draw a picture of the solid. I just pasted a picture. So I want you to do the same for rectangular prism that we talked about together, pentagonal prism, hexagonal prism. If you can't find a solid in your house, you can find a picture online of each prism so that you can count all these things. If that explanation didn't make sense to you, you can go back the video and play again and watch again. If it did make sense to you, that's good. Now you can move ahead to do your homework. Let's look at rectangular prism in particular. A rectangular prism has 12 edges. So there's 3 long ones in this prism, 3 edges, and the 3 vertical ones, 4, 5, 6, and the ones on the sides, 7, 8, 9, and the ones behind at the back, 10, 11, 12, all the 12 edges. It also has 8 points, 8 vertices, just like a cube. There's 4 on the left side and the other 4 on the right side. So 12 edges, 8 vertices, and it has 2 bases, the one on the left, the one on the right, and 4 faces, the one on the top, the one at the bottom, the one in the front, and the one at the back. For rectangular prisms, you can call it 4 faces and 2 bases, just like how we counted. Or you can also say that it has 6 faces. Do you know why? That's because any pair of opposite faces of a rectangular prism can be the basis. So in this rectangular prism, we can call these 2 the bases, the one on the top and the one at the bottom, and the other 4 faces, 2 in the front and 2 at the back. However, if you put it down, you can call it in a different way. We can call the one on top a base, the one at the bottom a base, and these 2 rectangular bases are joined by other rectangular faces, because all the faces of a rectangular prism are rectangles. So if you flip it around, the other 2 faces can be called bases too. Does that make sense to you? So if you flip this, what you can do is you can find something in your house and play around, play flipping it around. But I think you're pretty smart to get that any 2 opposite sides, opposite faces of a rectangular prism can be the basis. So that's why we can say rectangular prism has 6 faces, including the 2 bases.